So hello fellow Earthlings. This is Earthling 6455463728. And a couple days ago, maybe 2 days ago, I was talking about Bret Weinstein and the idea or the problem that he might have discovered going on 18 years ago, I think it was. An issue that potentially affects many pharmaceutical products and their underlying studies that allowed them to become FDA approved drugs. And the problem was based on the lab mice that were used to conduct many of these studies. That problem may continue to exist as a result of if these mice have been sourced from the place where they were sourced at a time when, well, it's not that he discovered it, but he hypothesized that this might be a problem. So let me try to say what the problem is in as succinct a way as I can. At the time when Bret Weinstein was going over the idea of telomeres, as in, it seems like really hard to believe that telomeres were not understood at that time completely. But what telomeres are, they are little bits at the ends of your chromosomes, I believe it is, that are limiters. It limits how many times a cell can divide. Let's say 8 times, and then the cell doesn't want to divide anymore. Now that's not a good thing, because obviously we need most of our cells to keep dividing. If you get a cut, you probably want your cells to divide and close up that cut on you. There are other cells that don't divide that much, like your brain cells. They, for the most part, you're born with, I believe, most of the brain cells that you're ever going to have in life. They don't multiply. Of course, that's good because there's not a whole lot of wiggle room in your brain. Or your skull, rather. But places like your skin, where you're shedding skin cells all the time, like your, esophagus, basically the whole canal that goes from your mouth to the other end, you need your cells to be dividing regularly. Now, the problem is that cancer cells are cells that are able to get over that hill of dividing, and they basically turn off mechanisms that say, hey, it's time to kill yourself, and they leave on mechanisms that say, hey, it's a party, grow as much as you want to, just keep growing. And what Bret Weinstein had, his idea was that these telomeres help to reduce the likelihood of cancer, because they're a limit to the number of times that your cell can divide, and they prevent cancers from being formed in your body where a cell has no reason to stop dividing, and it just decides that it wants to take all the resources of the body and become this big tumor or something. As it turns out, though, lab mice have really long telomeres for the length of time that they live for. It's an aberration. And as a result of that, unfortunately, it means that they can bounce back from different issues that might potentially harm a human being. And they might not show the harmful effects of a drug that's tested on them because they have these long telomeres that can combat the effects of this drug that might be destroying a particular part of the lab mouse's body. As a result of that, potentially, according to Bret Weinstein, these mice might be allowing harmful effects to just go under their radar and allowing drugs that should not be allowed to be given to human beings to get FDA approval and to be used by human beings. The idea is not that, okay, a human is going to take this drug and then they're going to fall over and die. It's not like that. It's that a human is going to take this drug for a long period of time and eventually have some kind of harmful effect. And that it's not visible with lab mice because they have these long telomeres that allow them to continue to deal with whatever effects because what they do is they give the lab mice huge amounts of whatever drug it might be in order to be able to see, well, okay, we can't see this mouse doesn't have a long lifetime, but if we give it a lot of this stuff, whatever the effects are, even if they're small and they would occur over a long period of time, we'll see them in the mouse because by giving it this huge dose, those effects will appear. But these mice are like Wolverine from the X-Men. They just can regenerate stuff. So what Mr. Weinstein was thinking was that there might be some drugs that are out there on the market that have been approved, and because of these mice, their ability to mask these deleterious effects, when someone has something like a heart problem as a result of one of these drugs that have been passed, it might not be that the drug has a problem on people's hearts. It might be a question of the heart is one of the most sensitive places to any kind of problems where you need to regenerate, because heart as a muscle doesn't regenerate well at all. I don't know how the brain would compare to it, but heart cells and brain cells as compared to skin cells and cells in your digestive tract completely, they don't regenerate that much. I don't know if brain cells regenerate at all, and I don't know if heart cells regenerate at all. But what Mr. Weinstein was saying was that maybe it's just that the heart is one of the first places for you to see these problems, and that's why the problems come out they are manifested as heart problems rather than some sort of problem, an overall problem that just affects the heart first. Now there's other aspects of the situation wherein how did these mice end up having these long telomeres that allow them to regenerate better than regular mice perhaps? Well, this was another part of a theory that Bret Weinstein came up with, which is that during natural or even artificial selection, I suppose, which is what happened to the mice, because these are mice that are bred for laboratories. The idea is that mutations that benefit you when you're young but might hurt you when you're old tend to get selected for, because who knows how old you're going to live to be. Also, if you do live to be very old, what's going to happen is that you probably already bred anyway. And I'm talking about organisms, really. So like I was saying, to repeat, mutations that benefit you up to the time that you can reproduce, especially if you have a short lifespan as an organism, are going to be favored even if they have a bad effect when you're old, because who knows if you're even going to be able to live that long. For certain animals that, because of their environmental niche, and they happen to be able to live very long, then in the specific case of telomeres, you might end up having longer telomeres because you need them, because you live a long time. You need to be able to regenerate over that whole period of time. Anyway, the problem with the mice could have come about, he was saying, because longer telomeres mean that you're going to be able to regenerate well and perhaps recover well from any injuries. The people who were making the mice wanted to breed young mice because young mice breed, I guess, faster and healthier and everything. All mice probably don't breed as many and as often and have as healthy young, etc. So they weren't going to use, once a mouse might be past a particular age, they wouldn't use it anymore. Now, when you allow these young mice to reproduce, and some of them happen to have these longer telomeres that allow them to regenerate, they would be selected for, because that would allow them to, recover from different injuries or something that they might have, even though these longer telomeres put them at risk for higher amounts of cancer, because that's what telomeres are supposed to do. Remember, the telomeres are supposed to cut down the amount of times that your cells can reproduce, and that number of times that it can reproduce, to have that low is good if you don't live very long, because one of your cells is not going to go rogue and start reproducing. So in a circumstance where you're allowing these young mice to reproduce, this thing that would have been bad if they live to a long age becomes good, because they're mainly living to a short age, but it's really good for them being young and being able to reproduce that well. I don't think I'm doing a good job of this, but anyway, I hope I've conveyed the idea as to the lab mice were not like regular mice, and being not like regular mice, it was a strange thing that made Mr. Bret Weinstein look into these lab mice, because they were anomaly among other organisms, and he came to the conclusion that because of the specific difference of these lab mice, they were not very good models for human beings, beyond the fact that it's mice compared to humans. It's beyond that. We were comparing an animal that can regenerate much better than a human being, aside from the fact that it's not even a human being. So it would allow some of these drugs that might have bad long-term effects into the system. So anyway, hope you all got it, and I hope I didn't butcher this thing too much. Anyway, wish me lucks. You can like or unlike, you can comment, subscribe, and or share. Peace.